Hello, everybody. God bless, and welcome to the third podcast of JZsUK Endless Tales. Our guests today are Mr. Solymosi Zsolt and Elekes Zsolt. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Our first question would be: everyone knows that there is an ongoing podcast with you, but not so many people know from who the idea comes from. Please tell us about it.
Well, the idea comes from him, so I will let him.
Hi, I'm Diego.
Welcome, Diego.
The idea comes from an evening moment when I was driving for long hours, and I was really upset and overwhelmed by the online situation we had in school. We were forced to stay online, and I felt that everyone became totally demotivated. We were forced to show up in the front of the laptops, and basically we lost that vibrant life we had in the high school in the normal time before COVID-19. And it came to my mind a show from the 90s. It was a beautiful movie series. Actually, Midnight Caller was its name. It was about a guy who was a former cop, and he was hosting a show in San Francisco after midnight. He was basically talking to people about all kinds of issues, problems, love issues, all kinds of social problems. He was not solving anything, but he offered that space when people were able to socialize in a way, even through the radio. And I felt like we should do something. We should start something, what might help the students to come out from that dungeon. And we started with the first show, and we immediately realized. Of course, I called Drusa to join me because we basically do the same thing in the school. And after the first show, I realized how important it was during that period. I wouldn't say that it's still a very important show right now. I mean, we are still doing it until we feel like we should do it. But the first couple ones, especially that we opened some subjects what were all pretty much taboo and not a free topic in a school circle. I felt that it was important, and I'm lucky that I was driving that evening and the story started.
And we are lucky, I think, to say that. And I think it's interesting that the high school always tried to live to the current era. And you know, we made a lot of movies and you made a lot of movies with the high school, and you made the radio in the past. And now that the podcast ecosystem in the world is starting to really evolve, and you see a lot of podcasts in the world, now I think we found a place as well for the JZsUK and our school to try to address contemporary issues in a way that speaks and can be closely related to the students' needs in our world.
And how do you find your audience? Active, passive, maybe both?
I think that's interesting. The first couple of times we tried to have a very interactive podcast. I think our first podcast was about social differences, like extreme differences in our social life, and many of the students shared with us their thoughts about it, and we had a very interactive one. However, I think it is not so easy to have an evening podcast show where you are asking your audience to answer to your questions, to bring in like some pictures and some videos and whatsoever. So after that we kind of started experimenting on how to do it in a way that it still can be interactive if our listeners wishes so, but if they don't wish so, we can have a continuous 1.5 hour podcast. And lately, we found a very good platform where anonymously our students and our listeners, and not just students lately, we have many guests who are listening to us, they can share their thoughts about the topic anonymously, and then we are bringing it at the right moment in the podcast. So we try to make it interactive. If it is passive, sometimes it's more passive, sometimes it's more active. It depends on the topic we are discussing. Obviously, if it's a very high reason subject, then many people would share their thoughts. If it's a subject that people just enjoy to stand up or to sit in their PC desks and their chairs and just listen to the podcast while they are doing their homework or they are gaming or whatsoever they are doing, then they would not share their thoughts.
Actually, we got a funny comment from one of the students. He said, like, stop asking questions about what are the questions we have. This might be a show to listen, not to ask questions. And that was the moment when we realized that we should not push on this side. I mean, the topic itself, if it's interesting, it's pretty much okay. I mean,
right.
Now I realize that we are talking about Esti Beszélgetések in the JZsUK Podcast.
Yeah, it's a podcast about
A podcast, basically. So, how do you choose your guests?
Well, firstly, actually, the first 25, we have at least 25 shows by now. We had topics from the students. They were coming up with some subjects, basically taboo subjects and things what looked interesting for them. Mainly questions or topics what were outside of their life, or they were not finding any answers, even though they tried to search or do something about it. So firstly we use their topics, and then as always happens with people who are not inspired enough, 3 days before the show we start to scratch our heads and look for something, and usually the best topics come out in these moments when we are not ready. Like tonight we're gonna have a show about Cuba. It's really a country what can be interesting for everyone on this earth, and we managed to find a lady who lives in US, but she's a native Cuban, and I managed to talk to David, my colleague, who has been to Cuba, and he's happy to talk tonight about his experience as a Transylvanian in Cuba. That might be interesting, and I'm looking forward to the program. It came out like this, or 2 weeks ago, about food and stuff like that. So we don't contemplate too much. There's so many things to talk about it. Even though there are so many podcasts going on, people can choose and listen or not. I think we are doing well.
Exactly, and I would just like to add that this man over here has such a great social net that every time we choose a topic, he always comes with one or two people that this person would be a very good guest on this topic, and I'm really glad that. Yeah, you're not a boomer, yeah.
No, we were watching a movie about gypsies. With the 11th grade class, and the gypsy was my friend from the movie. So I said, well, after it was the famous Bachtalo movie, and I said, okay, now we're gonna invite Gabor Lali to talk to you, and that was fun.
Yeah, and I think this is why it's great that it's the two of us that are making the podcast. He comes with his enormously big experience and as I said, social net, and I'm coming with some enthusiasm and some technical knowledge on the platform and whatsoever.
But to be honest, and looking at you also and the crew behind us, this is not a one-man show, and the Midnight Caller was about Gary Cole and about Jack Killian, the guy. By the way, you should watch some parts of that series because it's fun to travel back to the 80s. But in case that we are together and you are together and there's a crew behind us, I think it makes the podcast more vibrant and more joyful than being alone.
It makes it a community podcast.
Yeah.
Which was intended to be.
And sometimes we make fun of each other and ourselves, and that's the best part, actually.
Could you talk about your most important guests, maybe?
Well, we had a very high level.
The high level guy.
We had the Secretary of State from the Health Department, who was talking to us at the very beginning. I think it was the third or fourth.
Yes, and it was a
podcast.
time when the virus was really a big issue. I mean, I'm just thinking that we are talking about we are talking in this show. It's February 2022, and the level of COVID-19 patients are thousands and thousands more than it was during
Back then, yes.
during the interview with that guy, and people were scared about the vaccine, and people were scared about the whole pandemic, and it was important to have an important person to talk to us. And the guy basically he arrived home from the parliament, and he was having his dinner at 10 p.m. Trying to fix his phone to engage with us.
And again, I think that we somehow managed to do a great job in trying to find the ways where, you know, this social media and this online world that we live in, it gave us a lot of hard times, especially with school, but it gave us some opportunities. It can connect us to people who are in the United States. We had many guests from the United States.
Yeah.
And it connects us to people who are just coming out of the parliament, going home, and right after their dinner, they can talk to us for an hour and a half about, you know, every aspect of the COVID, and are trying to make our mindsets into learning about this thing from a person that is actually very qualified to do it. And it helped us tremendously that we are literally just like an arm a stretch away from everyone in this world, and we can have a podcast in our school where people from all around the world and from with different backgrounds and experiences can come to us and share their knowledge.
You've talked about our crew and how is to make everything alone. So I don't know, you choose the topic and you make the videos, or you choose the videos or the pictures. How is this? How do you feel about?
It's fun because I live in a small village up on a mountain. He's in downtown Kolozsvár. I had some internet issues a few months ago. I remember that I had to drive down to the main village and had the podcast from a roundabout, and alcoholics from the local village were knocking at the window, and they badly wanted to participate in the show. But otherwise, by now, I mean, by the time we are in when it's a Wednesday, I'm looking forward for getting close to 8 o'clock and start a show, because it's such a lot of fun. As Drusam said, we talked with people from Spain, and we talked with people from Budapest, and people from everywhere. And this is really the positive part of online. I mean, there are so many sad parts about being behind monitors, but this was really a live part. And sometimes our guests are not familiar with Microsoft Teams. Many people do Zoom and do all kinds of other platforms. And it happened that even a few weeks ago, someone could not join the platform, and we lost half an hour at least fixing it, and we had to edit the show because it started with 30 minutes of technical cursing.
Sweated heavily.
Yeah, but by the end, you know, she got connected, and I always feel that there is a nice atmosphere. If I would not like this thing, I would not do it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's at this level of my life, I would not do things for a compromise or for the sake of doing it. And it's so much fun for us that we, until we're gonna like it, we're gonna do it. And at the moment when we feel that there's no necessary to do it, then we will do some farming.
And I would like to add that I think it's very interesting that we still have a very big audience in terms of our podcasts, and that shows us that it still looks like it's a meaningful podcast for many people to listen to in the evening. And you asked about the technical side, and I think it's interesting that you brought home your computer, and literally when we are doing our podcast and we are talking in the podcast, we are watching the Teams, we are watching our messengers and our phones, because we're communicating with each other a lot, and sometimes I tell myself that I cannot do things simultaneously because I'm not a woman, but that's a stereotype. However, in this one podcast, I learned to watch the Teams, to watch the Menti if we have answers, to watch the Messenger, and literally I have a laptop in my front of you, which is my main laptop, and then I have a laptop which is stretched away, so I have another screen up myself where I see the.
But he's luckier because his wife is watching him. So,
Exactly.
so it's like
I'm not sure if I'm luckier because she's very critical sometimes.
but I'm alone in a room, and sometimes I
Yeah.
feel that the stove will explode or something. But on the other hand, it's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the podcast is live, and I think that's one of the strength of what we are doing. But on the other hand, someone who doesn't have the time to be there, they can listen later on, or just to feel how the topic works. Like sometimes when the topic is very good, or they're curious about it, or when the guest is really important. Like we managed to have Otto Hindrik, big time goalkeeper of the first league team. We had over 100 listeners that evening, especially for him. And the last time when we had over 100 listeners was during the sex subject. So
Exactly, yeah.
you can get audience with sex or with famous people. These are the two options.
Yeah. And I think, with sex, we discussed very, very important issues. We have 2 podcasts on this issue because we couldn't fit everything in one podcast. And that was, I think, when I felt that it was the most meaningful. From our whole podcast, we have a lot of fun activities and whatsoever, but it was so
Fun activities.
well, not fun activities, but fun talks, and we had a lot of fun during the podcast. But that was the one where
I don't
Where-
remember any activity. But I remember
well,
that.
we had the Christmas one where we had the.
Oh yeah, no,
the-
I was with sex, but
Oh yeah.
now I remember that we had Esther as a main guest, and she's pretty much a sexologist.
Yes.
If there's
There is.
a vocation like that, and she was answering all kinds of questions I would never answer. I would never even read. Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
And I was keep thinking that, oh my God, I'm a vice principal of a school and I'm a priest and I have to ask this question. And answer was like, yeah, of course, yeah, it's blah blah blah.
Sorry, but I'm really curious. Please tell us one question and one answer.
Well, they were asking questions about masturbation, for example, about porn consumption, and these are the questions that are still taboo. Even if someone would ask me in a class to talk about this topic, I would have a very hard time on preparing the topic in a way that it is educational and would not make fun in front of a class, because you have 27 kids and students in front of you, and you are talking about porn, and you would have like the 2 or 3 which would be laughing, and then all of the class would split their attention because of
And
it. And she would make such a great job in answering everything on the topic and without any sense of uncomfortable.
I tried to be not to remain shy with that whole thing. And if someone was asking if it's okay to come on someone's face, and I was like, okay, I'm reading this now, and she was like, she looked at us and she said, Esther, like, well, we women are used to swallow everything. That's what they tell us, but you don't have to do that if you don't feel like. And I was like, I almost fell off from the chair, Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I miss those subjects. I mean, not sex, but I miss those really deep subjects when we were involved, and you can plan to talk about these issues. Like we have an issue we are keep postponing, and we are trying to prepare it. It's about being a teacher and about misconceptions about the pedagogues and related to teachers or what are we doing wrong, because I'm pretty sure, I mean, he's not a teacher, he's just learning how to be in this life, but I'm a teacher from 20 years and I am 100% sure that I do a lot of things wrong. And it's not about me, it's about all my colleagues outside of the school, inside of the school, but we are still afraid to open these subjects because it's like Pandora's box, if we remain honest with this whole podcast, and we promise that we will stay honest and we will answer all the questions related to coming on someone's face or not. The teacher's subjects or the teacher's stories will be a second big topic we are preparing to have, and let me use this moment to say something important for some of us. Ildikó Almási, a wonderful teacher, biology teacher, died 5 years ago. She was a biology teacher at age of 74, and she was still teaching here full-time biology, and we lost her in 2 weeks with a terrible illness. And today, as Facebook trickier as Facebook is, pops up with some memories, and she came up on the screen this morning, and I felt frozen for a few seconds that 5 years passed since she's not with us. And when I talk about teachers, when I talk about the life, the pathway or the vocation of a teacher, I always think about her, or Kürti Kati, or Majo Juliana, or many of you who are listening. You know that these are old teachers or old-time teachers in Kolozsvár, and when we open a subject like this, I think we always have to relate to someone, to start from somewhere regarding this subject. Yeah, so it's not going to be easy, but maybe in a few weeks we're going to open Pandora's box. It will be a challenge for us.
It will be for sure.
Is this free?
Yep. Yeah.
It's a nice show. We don't have free water.
Exactly, that's true.
So, as we know, we all have difficult days, but you still manage in two weeks' time to do a 1.5 hour show. How do you conquer this, let's say, part-time that you may be experiencing?
Well, it's not that hard. I mean, we need to prepare for it. Every Monday or Tuesday we have a talk, a preliminary talk about the topic, and we kind of set the jobs of the two of us. And if you like something, then it's not hard for you. You know, it was from 10 o'clock in the evening, and now it's from 9 o'clock, and I never felt like at midnight when we finished that I'm so tired and I just want to go to bed. No, I still felt energized, and it's not hard. On a Wednesday, I'm in the school from 8 to 4 o'clock. Then I'm going home. I have a lunch, and then I'm recording the professor's prayer. And then at like 7 or 8 o'clock, we start talking about it. At 8 o'clock, we start the meeting, and we organize we pre-organize the whole podcast. And then we are having the podcast until like 11. And from 11, I'm uploading the professor's prayer. And still, when I finish with everything, I would have like 1 hour more to just do whatever I like. So I never felt that I was tired or it was exhausting for me. And I'm very glad to report this.
I think it's the highlight of the day. I really enjoy it a lot. Actually, there are famous radio broadcasters in US and in Europe who are pretty good on leading such kind of shows, and sometimes I watch them. Sometimes I try to learn as much as possible from them, because if not, you are in danger of running all kinds of used circles, and that's not good for the show. There's a guy, Michael Feldman, in US. He broadcasts at NPR, the National Public Radio, with a live show. It's called What Do You Know? It's a quiz show, basically. But the live radio podcast is always with a live audience, basically in a theater or in a main hall. When I was in Madison, in Wisconsin, I went to one of his shows. There were 3,000 people in the audience, and the guy was on the stage by himself with a pianist and one other musician, and the musician was playing music during the commercials, whatever, and the show hosted for 2 hours. And the fun part was that in the break time he shared a little piece of papers with the audience, and you were able to ask questions. And the funniest question was always read. He always read the funniest questions on stage during the show. And out of 3,000 people, I asked him, of course, when do you consider to visit Transylvania? and the guy picked up the question, and he invited me on stage. And we had like a 3-minute dialogue when he made fun of me, all kinds of Dracula stuff and Vlad stuff and Romania stuff. But I was able to talk about the school. I was able to talk about the fact that I will preach on a Frank Lloyd Wright church in Madison that evening, and it was fun. And I will never forget that moment. So maybe if and this is an idea at this point, but if the pandemic ends, and maybe we change the starting hour of the podcast, we can do this live. We can do this live with people from the main hall of the school with 3 or 4 cameras, and even though having guests from all over the world, but put it at 6 o'clock at p.m. It's much more fun to have 100 people with you, have some music, ask questions, face them when you are not behind a monitor. So maybe, who knows?
We have the late evening shows in the TV, and then we have the late afternoon shows in the school. This is how the ideas are, being born for our projects.
I think we learned a lot about how to do a podcast.
So basically how to manage being able to do such things.
Yep. Thank you very much. I think I don't have words to say how I feel now, because I'm surprised. I'm surprised. I'm very happy, and thank you very much again, and thank you for you, and God bless.
Thank you for joining in, and we will see you next time. God bless.
Thank you as well, and congrats on your podcast.
Thank you.